Hi, everyone. Glad to see everyone. We're right now streaming across Facebook, YouTube, and we're also streaming on the Saintmaker customer community. So I'm really happy to be doing this. This is the first time we've ever done any live streaming like this. My hope is that through creating some live streams, we can, then also store these and they can be available as an archive. I think in the long run, we're going to be discussing all kinds of things related to our products, but also just related to practical sainthood in general. I'd like to do an interview series. I'd like to interview some priests. I have some friends that are Catholics that are big names that I've met through this work, and I'd like to get them on. So, anyways, yeah, the idea of a podcast is obviously I think important to our mission, which is to continue to provide opportunities for people to discover practical pathways to sainthood, and I hope not only can we provide that kind of on a broad scale, but I also hope that we can provide some practical tips on how to use our products and how to take things to the next level. So for a while, we're going to be focusing exclusively on the Saintmaker itself, but like I said, that'll expand over time. So in this video, I'm going to focus on a goal-setting process that you can use really throughout the year whenever you're trying to discern a list of goals that could be helpful for you to kind of work on over the course of the next 6 months or the next 12 months. I noticed that there's a lot of goal-setting material out there that is, let's say, pretty new agey. I think goal setting is oftentimes used as a bit of a Trojan horse to get people into the door of kind of new age philosophy. And I think if you're not paying careful attention, they can really slip in some kind of stuff that's just better to avoid. The new age view of things doesn't have a good understanding of who we are and what we're here for, which is, of course, to know, love, and serve God from a Catholic perspective. So I want to provide a counterpoint to that. And one of the nice things about this time of year is that we just finished the Ascension, which was yesterday, and we're now waiting for Pentecost, right? So this is a really great time. Liturgically, it's the time when the apostles and Mary were in the upper room waiting and praying and wondering what was next after Christ's ascension, right? And so this is a great time for us to be asking questions like, am I on track this year? Am I bringing God into my life in the way that I was hoping for at Christmas? When I was really kind of envisioning my upcoming year, have I stayed true to that? Has Christ's resurrection borne fruit in my heart? These are good questions for us to be asking right now. And so I think taking this time to kind of set aside and do a goal setting retreat, which is what I'm going to be encouraging in this video, is really it's just really ideal. So I think you could aim to do something like this in the time between especially Christmas and Epiphany. I think that's a really good kind of liturgical moment to do something like this, to basically do discernment, to kind of think about what am I called to, what will that look like in the upcoming year. But this is another great time to do that. So I wanted to jump on and provide some practical steps, to kind of take a, let's say, spiritual retreat like that. Okay, so the main goal of a retreat like this is going to be to really discern kind of God's will in your life and what he's asking of you. And then either that or to kind of update what your insights were earlier in the year, right? So that's the point of this. Should you be using the Saintmaker for this? If you're not a Saintmaker customer, then I'm going to set this up. I'm going to set this presentation up so that you don't need to be using the Saintmaker. But of course, we created the Saintmaker specifically for this type of activity, right? So if you are using the Saintmaker, you're going to get a lot of benefit from using the Saintmaker. So anyways, yeah, this sort of seasonal goal setting retreat that we're working on, that I'm going to be presenting in this video, is, well suited to of course, to using the Saintmaker. I mean, like I said, it's designed for that, but you don't need it. If that's not the case, if you don't have the Saintmaker, then you'll just be using blank paper, basically. So before I get too far into this, I want to talk a little bit about vocations, because I'm going to be going into great depth on discerning goals and pathways in the context of your vocation. So what is a vocation? So according to the church, a vocation is a call from God to a distinctive state of life in which a person can reach holiness. So prior to the Second Vatican Council, what was meant by vocation was religious vocation. You may or may not know that, but when we spoke about vocations prior to the council, it was always in the context of a call to the priesthood or a call to be a religious sister or a brother. But after the Second Vatican Council, especially in the document Lumen Gentium, which you can look this up, there became known as the church started to encourage a universal call to holiness for all of the faithful. So basically saying that no matter who we are, if we're members of the church, we have a call to holiness, which is our vocation. And so the use of the term vocation expanded after the Second Vatican Council to include married life, religious life, the priesthood, and also single life. And so that's good to know about how the church thinks about vocations. The next question that I wanted to address is, what is a vocation made up of, right? So a vocation it's what we do. It's how we serve our family and our community. It's what we're called to by God, and vocations serve as our primary pathway to sanctification. So one common misconception is that our job is our vocation, but that's not true, really. Our vocation includes our job, but it's not limited to our job, right? So our job, our work, whatever we do on a daily basis, really serves our vocation. It's kind of a vehicle for kind of realizing our vocation in the world, but our vocation is not limited by our job, right? So again, if you're just coming in, we're going to be talking a lot in this video about specifically how to set goals in the context of your vocation, and I'm going to be laying out a pathway to do that, especially in this time after Ascension, before Pentecost, because it's a really good kind of time of year for us to be thinking about that kind of thing. So if you do have any questions, you can just type your questions into the comments or into the live chat, and I might be able to field some of those. All right, so the other thing before we kind of get into the nuts and bolts of this goal-setting process that I'm going to be presenting, I wanted to mention that I just recently published a blog post on the Saintmaker blog, which is found at thesaintmaker.com/blog. And the blog post is called Why Christians Set and Achieve Goals Differently. This could be a very helpful thing for you to read prior to going into kind of this retreat that I'm going to be laying out. Essentially, it's going to provide the right mindset and really help you understand how setting goals fits into a Christian life. So I would recommend going over and reading that. If you want, you can come back to this later, or you can just watch this all the way through now, then go read it, then watch the replay and actually work through the process that I'm going to lay out. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first step here is discernment. So you don't want to go into setting goals without doing proper discernment. So I'm going to lay out a list of questions that I think you should write down and that you should answer prior to really diving into your goals here. So if you do have a Saintmaker, you would open up to the personal journal pages, and you would write each of these questions with some room underneath them to write in your answers later, right? So you've got your Saintmaker, you've got your personal journal pages open, and now I'm going to list the questions, and then, like I said, just write these down with some space underneath to answer. Okay, so question 1. What is exciting or motivates you about your vocation, and how can you do more of that in the upcoming months? What is exciting or motivates you about your vocation, and how can you do more of that? Next, what opportunities have been presented to you lately? Next, what changes has God been asking you to make that you've been reluctant to do or to try out? So that's a big one. Very important to ask. What would be an exciting next step that would take you deeper in your vocation? What could you do or sacrifice for others in your current vocation? What inspires you about the life of the saints or other Christians, and how can you imitate them in your vocation? What do others, especially people with wisdom who know you well, say you should do? And finally, what caught your attention, moved you over the past half year or so that you weren't expecting? So once you have those written down, you would then set a timer and spend, maybe 30 seconds on each one. And I would really encourage you to just let it flow, not to really censor or edit yourself, because you can always go back and edit later. But you want to just kind of, I guess, let the Spirit move you, just let come out whatever comes out, and be okay with it. And you're going to go back, like I said, we can refine these in future steps. But so as you do that, like I said, 30 seconds to a minute per question is totally enough. And it would be good to kind of set the mood. You could take some time away from family, take some time away from any distractions, put on some music, and just take some time with those. So then, now that you have your list, right, you're going to go back and you're going to look at each item on the list, and the goal now is to make them actionable. So if you have items on the list that you couldn't exactly act on, the goal is to now turn them into something that would be it'd be very possible for you to act on it, right? But I don't want you to get into too much detail with it. So it's really just kind of like a high level, what is the goal here? What is the action I could take in the world and in my vocation that's practical, that's understandable, that's reachable, right? So I'll give you some examples. So let's say you answer, I'm inspired to help local homeschooling families connect, right? So the question you now ask is, what would this require me to do? So I'm inspired to help local homeschool families connect. What would this require me to do? It would require me, for example, to work with other parents to start a formal organization for homeschool families this summer, right? So that becomes the goal, to work with other parents to start a formal organization for homeschool families. I'll give you another example. So let's say your answer is to stop letting myself become distracted at work. So that's really kind of vague. It's not clear enough for you to take action on it. And it's important to make these things into specific and actionable targets, right? So the question is, what would this require me to do? One answer might be install and implement a software to block out digital distractions at work and do it this month or something like that. So that becomes concrete, practical, realistic. But you don't want, like I said, to go into too much detail, because we're going to be able to do that in future steps. So now that you've made each of the items on your list actionable, we're going to go through and we're going to select. So if you look in the front of your Saintmaker, there's the yearly, or I think it's annual goals, right? So that's the list that we're going to be targeting to kind of fill in with what we've got here. So in that list, you've got, I think, 16 slots. So what we're going to do is we're going to narrow all of these down into the top 16. So if you were going to, pick 16 goals for the year, that would be 4 per quarter, right? And I should say these goals are not hard and fast. We're always thinking about revising them. Like I said, maybe on a 6-month basis, maybe on a quarterly basis, you're going to go back and you're going to go, is this really what God wants of me? Is this really what I should be spending my time on? And in a process similar to this, or in something even a little bit more lightweight, you're just going to kind of say, yeah, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can adjust it this way, etc. So don't worry about being too rigid with this. This is just kind of a fun process to get 16 targets down for the year that you might be excited to and motivated and really feel like a good match for you and your vocation, right? So now, once you've got your big list, you're going to narrow that down, like I said, to 16, and here's how. So you're going to ask yourself 4 questions. So the first question is, which of these that I've written down would have the biggest positive impact on my family, my community, and the church? So that's the first one. Which would have the biggest positive impact on my family, my community, and the church? Next, which of these seem most suited to me at this stage in my life? Right? And the third one is, which would serve to really make me closer to God and to glorify Him through my efforts? And then finally, which would make me happiest in the long run? Now, in the real sense, right? Not in a materialistic, shallow sense of happiness, but which is going to have that real, lasting contentment and joy that we're really seeking, right? The meaningful type, the type that comes from sacrifice and comes from taking on things that are truly worthwhile, right? So from here, you've got your 4 questions, and hopefully this helps you now to start narrowing things down. And so, like I said, the target is to end up with a list of 16. So once you've got your 16, you're going to take those, you're going to add them to your annual goals page, or if you're not using a Saintmaker, like I said, you could just write them down on a blank piece of paper. So you've got your 16 goals, boom, 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 and you've either got them in your annual goals on your Saintmaker or you've got them on a blank page. So 16 goals equals 4 per season. So if you are using a Saintmaker, you can now in the rightmost column write which season you'd like to accomplish each in, right? So you're going to end up with 4 per season, or maybe some seasons have 5 depending on your capacity that season. Let's say this season you choose 4. So now we're in summer, so you have 4 that you're going to try to accomplish. You've got 4 for fall, you've got 4 for winter, and then maybe you've got 4 for next spring. So that'll be 4 seasons. If you're looking at summer now, you're going to rank them. So rank them 1, the first one you'd like to accomplish, that you'd like to spend the most time on. Then 2, which is the next one that you're going to try to accomplish. 3 and 4, right? So now you have your list of annual goals. You've got what season you want to accomplish them in. And then for the current season, you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, if you're using blank paper, you can just do the same thing where you have, without the structure of the Saintmaker, where you've got your goals, you've got your seasons to the right, and then you can rank them to the left. So that's how you do it. And that whole process should take, I don't know, maybe a half hour. You could do it on a Sunday. You could do it sometime when you maybe set aside some time and just go out on your own to a coffee shop and do that. But I think that, again, if you're spending time with this, especially during this period between Ascension and Pentecost, this is a really good spiritually charged time to do this. You could take a few days to do it, even, where you do some prayer, where you do the readings, where you really kind of reflect a little bit on what's being said to you. There's always ways to take this deeper. So if you are using the Saintmaker, you should be fairly well prepared for this, especially if you've been practicing with the tools like the daily examine, the weekly examine, the confession journals, the daily meditation, you know, these are things that are going to really form your conscience. So when it comes to quote unquote goal setting, it's really just a matter of taking that foundation that you've really been establishing through that consistent process of spiritual reflection and discernment, and then kind of taking it into the next step of kind of like realizing those things, figuring out what you're going to be working on in the world and in your day-to-day life, right? So so anyways, so that's the essential outline for the mid-year goal setting retreat. And I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, just feel free to leave comments, and we'll see if we can field them. And in future videos, we're going to cover kind of more practical details about going into more depth about specifically how to set goals, and then also how to create plans for, to make them happen. But yeah, like I said, if you haven't read the new blog post, Why Christians Set and Achieve Goals Differently, which is, I think I have a little, I had a little picture-in-picture of that, but whatever. This new streaming software is alien to me, so I can't pull that up right now. But yeah, just go to the blog, saintmaker.com/blog, and check out that blog post. And again, I hope this was helpful, and we'll do it again soon. All right, God bless, and I'll talk